partner and CHRO at BDO India, and a distinguished HR professional, Ms. Mitu Seth.
I realized that it's not just about policies and processes, but it's really about understanding human systems, how to influence them, aligning the people energy to the business purpose.
I love how you did not just talk about systems but about people's emotions. That's what really resonates.
Today, we see a lot of our employees championing inclusion themselves, multi generational mentoring programs, calling out bias, or celebrating even cultural festivals together. And that's how we know that it's becoming a part of our daily fabric.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I'm your host, Sunny Pancholi, and today we are honored to be joined by an esteemed HR leader whose career spans over 2 decades across the manufacturing, banking, and financial services industries. Our guest today is someone who has demonstrated exceptional leadership in HR, particularly in transforming organizations through strategic talent management, organizational development, and large scale restructuring. She has built thriving work cultures, developed impactful leadership programs, and led teams through significant business transformations. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Mitu Seth, partner and CHRO at BDO India, and a distinguished HR professional recognized for her ability to align people with business strategy and foster high impact change. Ms. Mitu, it is a privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you, Sunny. It's truly a pleasure to be here.
So, Ms. Neetu, let's start with a bit of a story. You have had such a diverse and fascinating career across industries like banking, manufacturing, and financial services. So, if we rewind to the start, what was it that first sparked your interest in HR? And when you look back, what are some of the key moments or decisions that helped shape your journey?
Sure. Sunny, my journey into HR wasn't something that I had mapped out deliberately. Back in college, my interest, like most of us in college, was towards finance, economics, and accounts. But I was always fascinated by people, what drives them, how they respond to leadership, what makes a group come together or fall apart. That spark really began with my accounts professor, who also headed the student council. And he had this remarkable ability to resolve conflicts. Imagine a bunch of young adults, teenagers, to listen to them calmly, bring opposing views together, and still guide everyone towards a shared goal. Watching him, I realized how deeply leadership can influence culture, energy within a group. And my journey then began when I entered my MBA curriculum. Of course, through the first year, we had multitude of subjects, but I chose a few related to organizational design and structure, so some HR related subjects. And that's when it really clicked for me because I realized that it's not just about policies and processes, but it's really about understanding human systems, how to influence them, aligning the people energy to the business purpose. And that belief still anchors me even today in my HR journey. So I started my career on the manufacturing floor with my first organization and experiencing that diversity of talent firsthand, from unionized staff on the shop floor to white collared professionals, right from engineering campuses to seasoned industry experts. It taught me how differently people think, work, and how they take pride in what they do. The focus, because it was a manufacturing organization, the focus on precision, quality, and above all, human safety and care started to shape my approach to people and culture. So that was really my foundation years of learning HR. And then, of course, came my transition into banking and financial services. Fast paced, service oriented, highly regulated environment. And this is where I learned how critical it is for HR to be a true strategic partner, to have a seat at the table where business decisions are made and not just merely implement them. Of course, the journey has been with its challenges, balancing demanding roles, aging parents, growing children, managing tough assignments, navigating complex stakeholders. But through it all, I have learned that resilience, empathy, and clarity of purpose matter more than getting it 100% right or being the perfectionist. So looking back, every success and of course every stumble has reinforced one truth for me. Organizations don't transform until people do. Does that strike a chord with you or with the audience? It's what continues to inspire me even today, 25 years down, to lead with purpose, empathy, and a deep belief in the transformative power of people. So that's a little, my journey in a little nutshell for you.
Ms. Mitu, thank you for the great start to this conversation, and your journey gives a sense of how those early challenges shaped your approach to HR. And I can imagine moving across such diverse industries must have been both exciting and daunting for you.
Absolutely. It's been a journey for sure.
Right. So, continuing our conversation, Ms. Mitu, at Deutsche Bank, you led a significant people transformation when staff had transitioned from Mumbai to Pune. How did you approach that shift? I mean, both logically, logistically, and culturally. And what were the hurdles? And what did you learn as an HR leader managing such large scale change?
Sure. I would say, Sunny, that was one of the most truly defining chapters in my career. I think it evolved me into the HR leader and professional that I am today. Of course, when this shift was first being contemplated within the organization, the world around us was going through major change. The global financial crisis of 2008, evolving regulatory landscape, the Eurozone debt crisis was going on, and a weakening Europe and Russia dynamic was kind of evolving. And at the same time, to India's benefit, our strong domestic economy, stable regulatory environment made us a very attractive proposition for any global bank. And for Deutsche Bank also, it became clear that India would be a key tech and operations hub for them. So on paper, the plan looked really very simple. It was about lifting, shifting business to another city and then expanding the site from there. But in reality, we were asking hundreds of employees to uproot their lives. It wasn't just about moving people. It was about moving families, spousal careers, routines, schools, and of course, their emotional anchors, right? So we had to think people first, not just process. And while some saw it as a cost, I have always believed it was an investment in the trust, in continuity, and in the human side of change. Building financial incentives, relocation packages, incentivizing mobility, bonuses, lock-ins, etc., was the easy part, right? What mattered was how do we weave in care and empathy into every part of the plan. So we set up housing, schooling, organized look and see trips, cultural acclimatization and orientation to the city. And, me and my team joked back then that we did everything under the sun for our employees except provide them with matrimonial services and house help support back in Pune. So behind every relocation file, I felt there was a real story, a real family, and real fears and anxiety, right? It wasn't easy uprooting and suddenly shifting to a new city. But I think to me, the cherry on the cake or the most humbling part of the project was just not achieving those mobility targets, how many people have moved, how many managers have moved. It was ensuring that every person who could not relocate to Pune was redeployed 100% back in Mumbai, so that no livelihood was lost on account of this transition and change plan. And that to me, I think added far more value to the bank's employer value proposition that any relocation statistic ever could. And through it all, I was also managing my own and my team's anxiety because I was not going to move to Pune myself. And therefore, questions about future, what roles, what would be the place in this new setup. I learned all of that, how to manage that while delivering a large scale transformation. But in my view, I think communication, transparency, therefore, aren't just tools, they become the lifelines in this kind of a change program. So looking back, really, this experience reinforced a simple truth for me as a people leader also, that people don't resist change, they resist being changed. As HR leaders, if we approach transformation through empathy, authenticity, and focus on the human outcomes, we can not only move teams, but inspire them as well. So my guidance to any HR professional leading a change of this magnitude is think people first, invest in people, communicate relentlessly, and design solutions that honor both performance and the humanity angle of such a change program. When you do that, change stops being a disruption and it becomes a shared journey with people. And that ultimately is what makes transformation sustainable, meaningful, and I feel truly successful. So that's been really my experience and learnings through this program.
Incredible, Miss Mitu. Truly incredible. And I love how you did not just talk about systems, but about people's emotions. That's what really resonates.
Thank you.
So, moving ahead, having led people's strategies through challenging times like the pandemic and major mergers, how do you ensure that HR not only adapts but becomes a key driver of stability and growth during such high pressure situations?
Yeah. So, Sunny, as you know, the pandemic was unlike anything any one of us had ever faced. I think it's been like a project and a learning story or a chapter for every professional, whether you're in HR or on the business side. And I think it tested not only just the business continuity, but our own empathy, agility, and strength as leaders. Overnight, everything changed. People were anxious about their health, families, their jobs, and livelihoods. And I think HR's role evolved during this pandemic from just merely managing the processes to really caring for people in every possible way. Of course, when we went into lockdowns, etc., business had to move very quickly, provide remote working, technology tools, flexibility, also coaching and working with managers and leaders on how to balance performance with empathy as they're leading the teams suddenly virtually and remotely. But I think the real test came in how are we going to care for our people beyond work. So from vaccinations, insurance top-ups to hospital support, counseling, even help with oxygen, or unfortunately in a few cases funeral services for staff who were affected with something like that in their family. We did whatever it took to just stand by our teams. The goal wasn't perfection, it was merely presence, and that made all the difference for our people. Because I feel in a time of crisis, people don't just need policies, they need to feel that the organization has their back. So I think, that what really truly defined us as an employer during that phase. And as we were going through this, just settling into the rhythm of the lockdown and working virtually, our organization went through a major acquisition as well. So right in the middle of the pandemic, onboarding and integrating an entirely new organization virtually was, I think, another curveball that came our way and a different kind of challenge. So imagine welcoming, hundreds of colleagues you've never met in person, building trust, culture, and connection through the screens. There were, of course, hiccups. Cultural integration took time. There were questions, thought processes, etc. But again, I come back to my previous, experience saying transparent, authentic communication really became our bridge. We focused on what our shared values would be, what our shared vision and outcome would be, and consistent engagement, even though it was through Teams and Zoom calls, etc. Slowly, the two units or organizations began to feel like one team. So I think both these experiences, the pandemic and the acquisition, reaffirmed something very powerful in me, that when HR teams lead with empathy, agility, and authenticity, it becomes the anchor that steadies the organization and the engine that drives that growth. Of course, business leaders, did their job of integration and integrating the processes and the technology. But I think HR partnered in making sure that this falls into place as well. And as John Cotter says, it's a very good quote that I really love. Change succeeds when you bring people along and not push them forward. And that quote or saying has still stayed with me, that even in chaos, it's really people who steady the ship. And it, I think, is privilege of HR professionals to help them steer that. So that's been my learning and my reflection, as the journey has gone along for me.
Ms. Mitu, it's incredible how HR can be a stabilizing force in such uncertain times. And your example really brings that to life. Hearing about the challenges and how you navigated them makes this so relatable. And it's not just about policy, you rightly said, it's about people and strategy.
Absolutely. No, it makes a difference. And I think if two hold hands and don't work as competing forces, what they can achieve could be really commendable.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Ms. Mitu, in a global organization like BNP Paribas, what role does HR play in bridging the cultural and geographical differences to create an inclusive environment? And how do you ensure that DEI is woven into the fabric of the company's values across regions?
No, absolutely. And I think a very good question, Sunny. I think in global organizations like BNP Paribas, spanning over 70 different countries, diversity isn't just a reality. It's like our daily rhythm, different time zones, languages, work styles, and sometimes very I would say different definitions of what inclusion really means. And nothing is right and wrong. It's just shaped over the years basis our cultures and our environment. And I still remember a very early virtual workshop across Europe and Asia where one group valued debate and direction and the other saw that as confrontational. And it was a small reminder for all of us that inclusion starts with understanding and not just assuming. So I think for HR professionals, that's really the essence of our role, to be the bridge. We connect cultures, we help align the values, and make sure inclusion is not just a global statement which is printed on our corridors or in our annual reports, but it has to get translated into what our employees locally experience as well. And I think in global organizations, it's easier because some of these DNI philosophies are driven from the top with clear global pillars around gender equality, disability inclusion, multiculturalism, LGBTQ plus advocacy, and the intergenerational dialogues. But I think what truly brings it together is how you localize it and adapt it suitable for your country, your cultural norms, etc. So in India, for instance, our teams have embedded these principles in ways that resonate with the Indian society through networks like Mixity, Pride, Ability, and Volunteering under the 1 million hours to help program of BNP Paribas. We've also integrated inclusive hiring, mentoring programs, leadership practices so that fairness and representation aren't just policy targets numbers. And as you are evolving, that's important. But slowly they translate into everyday habits and how we all think. Of course, has the journey been easy, smooth? No. In the early days, there was some hesitation, people's biases, or resistance. And it was more like, is it another DNI global template which is just being translated into India? But what helped shift was listening to what inclusion meant in an Indian context, what it meant for different people, and giving regional voices a seat at the table. And once people saw that it was not just compliance, not just a statistic, something that was being measured, but belonging, I think that's where the real click and change started to happen. And today we see a lot of our employees championing inclusion themselves, multi-generational mentoring programs, calling out bias, or celebrating even cultural festivals together. And that's how we know that it's becoming a part of our daily fabric. So I think as HR professionals, it's not just about translate those global policies, but we have to humanize them and turn the intent into real impact and culture into connection. So that's how I remind myself that inclusion isn't about making people fit in. It is about making space where everybody feels that that you belong there. So as HR professionals, if that's what you passionately believe in, and remember it as a mantra, one conversation, one connection at a time makes the difference.
Rightly said, Ms. Mitu, and it's fascinating how HR can view inclusivity into a global organization. Your examples really make it tangible. And truly, DEI is clearly more than a policy, it's a lived experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's how you feel and how included you feel. It makes the impact on the ground. I agree with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let's move on to the next segment of questions. But before we do that, let's first, have a rapid fire round. So no work
Oh
talks,
my God.
just for fun. Some quick questions, quirky questions. The first thing that strikes your mind, you have to answer that.
Sure.
Yeah. So shall I ask you the first question?
Go ahead.
Okay. First thing you do when you wake up.
I have to have my coffee.
Okay. What's your ultimate comfort food?
I think dal khichdi any day.
Okay, simple yet classic. Okay, yummy. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I think on a mountain covered with snows and lots of trees.
Okay, great. Would you rather have the ability to time travel or the ability to read minds?
I think ability to read minds, it will be an extra added power in my profession.
I knew that. All right. Next one, your go-to karaoke song.
थोड़ा है थोड़े की जरूरत है. I think that's all life is all about.
Absolutely true. What's your guilty pleasure TV show?
Any legal, legal drama. So the practice suits. I can binge watch some of these legal suits.
Okay. Next one, what's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Just put up my feet on the sofa and binge watch Netflix.
All right. What's the weirdest food combination you secretly love?
Oh my God. Um, Something sweet and spicy. So yes, I like jalebi with green chutney.
Okay, that is little weird.
You asked for the weirdest combination. Yeah, it's my guilty pleasure sometimes.
Okay, great. Last question. One word your friend would use to describe you.
Loyalty. That's what my name also means. My name also means a friend. So it detones loyalty. And I think that's how my friends describe me.
Great, great. That was truly blast, Miss Neetu. And thank you for sharing these fun insights. You have definitely got some interesting answers, and I think we all learned something new about you today.
Yep. I hope people don't remember my weirdest food combinations though.
Definitely they will. Jalebi with green chutney. Oh God, great.
Yeah. All right.
Uh, all right, all right. Okay, so let's move on to the next segment of questions, and the challenges that the industry faces. So in today's digital age, cybersecurity is more important than ever, especially in sectors like banking and financial services. So, Ms. Meetu, one issue that becomes more prevalent is phishing and cyber fraud, where fraudsters impersonate banks or HR departments to steal sensitive information. So, with your experience, how do you ensure that both employees and customers are protected from these type of scams? And part B of my question is, what measures have you implemented to safeguard against phishing attacks targeting your organization?
True and very, very pertinent and a real life situation we all face, both professionally and in our personal lives. Because in today's digital world, cybersecurity is no longer just an IT department concern. I think it's a people issue. And especially in banking, even a single lapse can lead to financial trust and reputational impact on the organization. So I remember, through some case studies, reading about an organization where a phishing attempt, where fraudsters posed as HR team, sending emails about an updated payroll link, and a few employees nearly clicked it before they were able to alert their HR department. Another instant or example which did happen real time for us was a third party vendors compromised account exposed a lot of personal data of our employees, including their names, their date of birth, their passwords, and some of those important data points, which typically become your password combinations as well. So this was, I think, a sharp reminder that vigilance, must extend beyond our own firewalls as well, including all the third parties who we may be kind of outsourcing any work to. And I think where HR plays a very crucial role is not just coding the firewalls, of course, but in building the human firewalls. And that I think is a very, very important security layer we can help our IT and business departments to build further. So in partnership and collaboration with our IT, compliance, and risk teams, we rolled out continuous awareness programs, simulated phishing tests, refresher workshops, and simple pause, verify, report campaigns. We reinforced data protection protocols through mandatory certifications, training programs, strengthened confidentiality clauses, also with our third party service providers. Now, initially, of course, participation was patchy because most people didn't realize the implications of some of these issues or saw it more as it's IT's job to do this or fix this, right? But once leaders themselves began sharing real world consequences, so we would have these flow shows, flow walks, and leaders spoke about regulatory penalties, client trust erosion, reputational damage. I think slowly awareness started to begin, and making it fun in terms of case studies, simulation, real life examples of within the banking sector, I think made people realize that this is a danger standing right at our door. So I think today in the organizations where I worked in the past, vigilance is second nature. Employees do think twice before clicking, and also it's become a part of the habit to report suspicious activity, so it's slowly becoming a part of your culture. And I think for me that's true risk leadership, when awareness turns into instinct, because in an age where I think data is currency today, right, it's very very valuable. Protecting it is not just an IT department's job but everybody's job, depending upon I mean irrespective of you are a regular employee or you're in finance or you're in HR. And our job is to keep that discipline alive every single day. So I think that's where risk leadership becomes a very important part of an HR professional's job today.
Absolutely. And it's eye-opening how HR can play such a pivotal role in cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
Your example really highlights the human side of risk management. Hearing about the challenges and the initial hiccups makes this so relatable. And it's
Absolutely.
clear that awareness and culture are just as important as technology.
Agree. Couldn't agree with you more.
Right. So, all right. So this brings us to the last question of the podcast. And let me ask you, what inspired you to join Directors Institute in the first place? And how has that experience shaped your perspective on leadership beyond the HR function? How has it influenced your approach to governance and decision making within your roles?
Sure. So Sunny, my curiosity about governance really began when I got opportunity and to serve as a director on the board of one of the organizations I worked with. I was inducted as a board of director, and sitting through those meetings was eye-opening. I realized that while I understood the people aspect very deeply, there was this whole other dimension to leadership happening in the room, right? Decisions that balance financial prudence, social responsibility, long-term sustainability. It made me want to extend my expertise beyond HR and really understand how businesses are creating value, not just for their shareholders, but for the societies and the communities and environments in which they are operating. So I think that's where I started thinking. And it took me a couple of years and it led me to Directors Institute. The experience was both grounding but stretching, I must say. Suddenly, I was engaging with discussions on governance frameworks, fiduciary duties, risk oversight, ESG impact, and it gave me a new lens on leadership. Uh, it wasn't just about culture or engagement anymore. It was about stewardship and accountability at scale. Of course, there were moments of discomfort because this was a new domain for me, not something that I am comfortable with, or maybe just newness of the whole aspect. But moving from the human lens to the rigor of board governance and compliance was, the key aspect for me. But I feel that that blend, the heart of HR and the discipline of governance, is what has today truly broadened my perspective as a leader. And it definitely has changed how I lead. Today, I think I ask tougher questions about ethics, impact, what is the long term value creation in this? Because ultimately, I feel leadership isn't about the title or the hierarchy, it's about responsibility. And so, one of my biggest takeaways from the program, and also something a mentor during the course mentioned that has stayed with me, is good governance is doing what's right, especially when it's not easy. So I think that to me is the true test of leadership, and maybe something that I will continue to let me guide as I go through this journey of leadership and beyond.
Ms. Mitu, it's fascinating to hear how Directors Institute spreads your perspective beyond HR. That transition from people strategy to board level thinking is so insightful. And hearing about the moments of challenge and reflection makes this really relatable. And it shows leadership is as much about learning as it is about experience.
Yeah. Agree. I mean, I think one of the most important values a leader can carry is the vulnerability. There is always something new to learn, to test, and to challenge you. And I think that's how you evolve as a human being and as well as a leader.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Ms. Mitu, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a remarkable journey with us. From leading transformative HR strategies to shaping organizational culture, your insights have been both enlightening and inspiring. And what truly stands out is your ability to balance the strategic with the human side of leadership, ensuring both organizational success and the well being of employees. So, also, your perspective on the role of HR in today's tech driven world, as well as your emphasis on governance and ethical leadership, offer invaluable lessons for leaders in every industry. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was very humbling for me, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
And to our listeners, I hope today's conversation has not only given you a deeper understanding of the evolving role of HR in organizations, but also practical wisdom on leadership, transformation, and building resilient cultures. This has been FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I'm your host, Sunny Pancholi, signing off for now. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep leading with purpose. Thank you so much and have a nice time.